Some symbols are supposed to be mental shortcuts. Some symbols are supposed to bring people together and inspire them, while other types of symbolism are there to help us understand complex concepts and present ideas that are difficult to put into words. And that last one is also the reason why things like personifications of death are so popular across cultures, or why mythical beings are often tied to powerful forces of nature that people didn't used to understand. But there is a popular and widespread type of symbolism that tends to push the things they represent to quite an extreme. And it actually does that for a very important and helpful reason. If you don't know me, I'm Luke from Unwritten Tomes, and on this channel I discuss books, stories, and how they relate to our everyday lives. So as I mentioned, there are many types of symbols and they can take a form of objects, icons, characters, or even entire narratives. But among all the complexities of symbolism, there is this one version that often showcases an extreme version of what the idea itself represents. And that type of symbolism is embodiment. Embodiment is when the symbol becomes the idea, or at least gets really close to it. And those might sound like buzzwords, so the actual difference between other types of symbolism and the embodiment is that more subtle forms of symbolism simply point or suggest the theme, idea, or concept, while embodiment is the concept itself put into a form or a series of events or actions or character traits. So, for example, Midas from Greek mythology can be seen as an embodiment of greed because he literally turns things into gold. And as I mentioned, the idea of greed is pushed to an extreme. Sort of the actions, the very character becomes the representation of greed itself. Other examples can be Narcissus, who can be seen as an embodiment of vanity and egoism, and is literally cursed to fall in love with his own reflection. And there is also a very popular story in Asian countries, A Rabbit on the Moon, where a rabbit becomes the embodiment of sacrifice when he throws himself into the fire to feed a certain beggar. In case you're worried, the beggar actually turns out to be the god of the moon and rewards the rabbit for his selfless sacrifice by, depending on the version of the story you're reading, either takes him to the moon or places his image on the moon as a sort of symbol. That actually fits the theme very well. But what's actually the reason those symbols are pushed to an extreme? You might look at it and think that it's just bringing all of the fun from trying to find the secret meaning, the hidden interpretations. It's just laid there in plain sight, and sometimes it doesn't even make much sense. Like, for example, the story of the rabbit was supposed to inspire sacrifice, but it seems kind of absurd to throw your life away just to feed a certain person, right? Like, it's very illogical. That's the word I was looking for. But stories and symbols especially are often not supposed to be taken literally at face value. The benefit of those extreme types of symbolism is that they simplify the idea. They remove all of the nuance, and by removing all of the nuance, they actually leave the concept they represent without any noise, so you can explore it on its own. It's also quite similar to when you explore philosophical ideas by making up hypothetical, quite absurd scenarios, like the very famous trolley problem and the multiple variations of it. When you push things to an extreme, you create a sort of contrast that helps you separate different topics and themes. The other, less philosophical reason is pretty simple. Unless you push things to the extreme, you still leave some space between the symbol and the concept. And if you leave some space there, then there is an opportunity to still create a potentially stronger symbol, something even closer to the idea. So eventually a better representation of an idea will come up in the form of a more extreme symbol. And of course, I'm using the word better only in this context, not universally better in serving this function that I'm discussing. But it might be the case that the reason why this type of symbolism is so popular or widespread is simply because it's the one we notice the most, because other more subtle forms of symbolism might not get noticed by most people. They often require a lot of literary experience and a sort of time and attention that most people won't spend on a story. I'm wondering what else I can add to this topic. I should also say, what are those more subtle forms of symbolism? I provided some examples for the extreme forms of symbolism, but the more subtle ways can be the color white symbolizing innocence, or a bird symbolizing freedom, roses symbolizing love, or some other type of symbol that might be very, very context dependent, and the story can create their completely original symbols simply by tying some element or some object or a character to a repeating pattern in a story. But at the very end, let's not forget that not everything has to be a symbol. Finding hidden meanings can be really cool, but sometimes a rose is just a rose and a storm is just bad weather.